Ed, I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask you about gun mount. I know you're going to say, well, it depends on the person and everyone's individual and blah, blah, blah. Well, I think it would be good to perhaps explore that more as to what is acceptable intolerance.
Yeah, I think the key thing from my perspective is you're absolutely right. You know me well. I'm going to say there's a lot of interpretation there and room for personal preference. Consistency of what you're doing trumps everything. Okay, so if you're mounting the gun low in the shoulder, like I do, as long as you mount the gun low in the shoulder all the time, you will inevitably build up your gun fit requirements and your style based on that. If you were starting somebody off from scratch, you would always suggest that they stand from like a bit of a textbook stance and they mount into the
almost level the shoulder into the shoulder pocket.
And that's absolutely fine. But if you, coming back to the whole, watch 15, 20 of the top guys doing their thing, you'll realise that, again, there's different stances, different mounts. One thing you will notice is that what those guys do is the same every time. So whether somebody's got their elbow elevated when they mount, whether they cant their gun to the side. Someone, I think, commented on, it was on your gun mount, starting it off.
The gun sits sideways because I find it more comfortable when it winds in.
Yeah, makes absolutely no impact on it outside of a stylistic perspective, because when it sits in your shoulder, it's going to the same point from the same place every time. Whether it starts off canted or straight or tucked under the armpit or out at the side, the key bit is it goes to the same point in the shoulder every time. So where it starts is kind of irrelevant. It's where it finishes.
Oh. I spent, a good month there trying very hard to start this level mount. I found it actually really uncomfortable. I found it a lot easier because I can relax my arm a lot more just to pull it in and then lock it down in.
There's a good reason not to do it. If something's physically uncomfortable to do, that's a pretty good sign in my book that you shouldn't be doing it. Work around it. Like I said, I've got no issue with you, for example, starting the gun with a cant at the dismounted position.
Provides it winds
as long
in
as
nice.
It comes in, and when you're locked up and you're into the gun, it's level and it's consistent. Then you can start learning. You can sort of build a stock around that. When people have got inconsistent mounts, that's when you can't fit a gun. People always bang on about gun fit, but the vast majority of people, close enough is good enough. Your average man off the street is going to be pretty well suited to an off-the-peg gun because they are made pretty sensibly for average guy dimensions.
Something like this with adjustable coma spacers?
Yeah.
There aren't many people you can get this close for.
No, and for a lot of people, the biggest stumbling block is the consistency of the person manipulating the gun as opposed to the gun itself. So, all the talk about chokes and cartridges and 30-inch barrels versus 32, and what about this? What about that?
Technique and consistency.
The fundamentals of what they are doing is normally reasonably flawed, and that will be supersedes all of the other stuff. In reality, there isn't a shortcut to it. The key thing is work on a consistent mount, and then you can get your gun to fit you as opposed to you to fit the gun.
Would it be fair to say that the sight picture you're looking for doesn't matter so much, providing it's consistent?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
As part of that. So, for example, you mount your gun low, I mount mine a little higher, but still relatively low. Yep. You mount yours somewhere where there's masses of muscle, and ergo, we will all see slightly different pictures and feel a slightly different thing in our body.
Yeah, that, and also you have preferences, so I like to see a lot of rib.
Yeah.
Some people don't. I do. So I set my gun up according to that. You'll find somebody else who likes to shoot a flat gun. Flat gun's also fine if you like flat shooting guns. You'll get sick of me saying it, but it is down to what you want. Now, stuff that's massively outside of the norm, so sort of the end 10-15% on a bell curve where you go, that's starting to get a bit extreme. You probably won't see anyone shooting to a decent level that's at an absolutely insane extreme end of the spectrum. But a lot of the guys that are shooting incredibly well will be spread somewhere across the middle ground. Some will see more, some will see less. Some will like longer stocks, some will like shorter stocks.
Shall we shoot a couple of targets and then move on? And I have further questions about pressures, like where should one put it on your face and things like this. Again, there's a lot of different options, but it might be quite interesting to think about how that works from a visual perspective with seeing a lot of rib, and also from a consistency perspective. But let's brace in place.
Let's have a go.
After you.
Ball. Ball.
Bring the gun to your face, not the face to the gun, is the old thing that is touted. And so I think a lot of people do just stand there and go, "This doesn't work." I think, is it also fair to say that with gun mount, you're okay to dip your head and put your body into a locked position? So I see you do it,
sure.
I see a lot of the pros doing it.
I think you want to be, I said, locked in to some extent. The key thing is that it's going to be consistent. So if you're super, super upright, for me, when you're shooting stuff up here, that's not a problem. You can get to it comfortably. If you're super upright and you're shooting something like a rabbit, you're going to find that you've got a completely different sight picture. So being able to tuck into the gun and come a bit more weight over your front foot is going to keep you locked in. Whereas obviously when you're shooting up here, you're quite comfortably into the gun. It's I'm trying to think how you can explain it in a sort of just a straightforward way. There isn't an answer for face to the gun, gun to the face.
Because you see, again, every top level performer
I would say if you're having to massively
contact.
dip your head in, then I would say there's an issue and you could change your stock spec. So whether you choose to go for a Monte Carlo setup or
so a bit higher.
Yeah, something with a higher piece so you can keep, I've got a reasonably long neck, whatever, that's it. But you'll notice that when I shoot, I've got quite a low contact on my face, almost on my jawline, and I keep a fairly upright head. I like the upright head position, and I can actually achieve that with a reasonably straight stock now, which is what we've been playing around with today. You'll find somebody else who shoots Ed's got like a Monte Carlo trap setup and a flat rib. Absolutely fine. Now it's what Ed shoots and Ed's comfortable with it. It's so different from a picture perspective to what I'm shooting. But I mean, as an interesting point, let's borrow your gun. So left-handed, right-handed, high rib, flat rib, Monte Carlo, right hand, straight stock, longer, shorter, lightweight parkours, barrels. So theoretically, you shouldn't be able to hit anything with this. Essentially, you can learn to shoot anything, right?
Yeah, and if you look at a lot of these big boy shooters, they're shooting stocks they had made some time ago, and although they maybe technically don't fit them perfectly, they got so damn used to it.
Yeah, you've worked. If you've got, it's like a pair of old trainers. If you've worn them in for a while and you feel super, super comfortable with them, everything feels right. Why get another one done? And they've worked, and your game changes. This is why it's so important for people not to rush in and get a custom stock, in my mind, because what you're doing mechanically 6 months to a year into your game is going to be so different to what you're doing 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years in, that the custom stock that you had made early doors is now absolutely useless because you've changed so much as a shooter.
When I had that moment with Ricardo done, it was like, why did you go adjustable? I'm like, because shit changes. Things change. We change, the way we shoot changes, and that's totally okay. Why would you have a gun without an adjustable comb if you're thinking of keeping it for a long period of time?
Yep.
Unless you want to think about getting another custom stock.
Yep.
Certainly whilst you're progressing up into your understanding.
Short term, it's easy to make adjustments with electrical tape, washers, toilet paper, whatever. Most
people are a bit too egotistical about their guns to do that, though. And I can totally appreciate that. Because it's nice to have pretty shit.
It's short term, when you're starting off, whatever you buy it straight away, you're going to change anyway. No one holds on to their first gun and shoots it for a long time because what they think they want early is not actually...
the Americans have a nice culture of pattern stocks based around that, right? Yep. They will get a gun and they'll happily have a plain piece of wood, tape stuff on, shave stuff off, pad over the bits, and it's not about the beauty, it's about getting it bang on before you invest in a nice piece of wood. And it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
If you had a student who'd been shooting for a couple of years and was regularly shooting 70 and was quite happy but wanted to progress, and they had a manifestly poor gun mount and a poor fitted gun,
They're probably not a student of his.
would you then want to address that first before you put a bit of polish to the technique? Or
So if they've got, when you say bad gun mount, if the gun mount is inconsistent, then yeah, for sure. Because again, you can't address the gun fit issue until you've addressed the gun mount issue, because if somebody's mounting one there, one there, one there, one there, it's impossible to fit a gun to that because there is no base point. The first thing you need to be able to fit a gun is a constant on the perspective of the mount. Then you work from that. So
back when I was doing a lot of gun fitting, it always came down to that. You get loads of people going, I need a gun fit, and without the consistency, it's guesswork. You're going, I think, based on my experience, you will need something like this, but in reality, some lessons is probably wiser than a gun fit.
Yeah, and there've been numerous people that have said to me, "All right, can you have a look at this? I'm thinking about getting a custom stock from XYZ wherever." And you look at them and go, A, you don't need one, and B, your basics of how you're mounting the gun are changing every time. Whatever they do, they're only going to be able to guess at it, because if you're not putting the gun in the same place twice in a row, what measurement do they take? You know, if your head is here, 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 they can't work to that. So the first thing you have to do is, if there's somebody that's your size, for example, it's going to be harder to learn a consistent mount with an off-the-shelf gun because it will be too short and there's going to be stuff that needs changing on it. For somebody that is in the 5'9" to 6'1" range, most stuff's going to be workable, and you can then build up a consistent mount, get it close. Then after a while of finding out what's working, then get your custom stock made.
Thank you for watching, guys. This channel is made possible by our amazing sponsors. You can find out more about them in the description down below. And if you want to support the channel, you can join as a member. You get loads of extra content, well, some extra content, and occasionally we hook up and go clay shooting together as a membership group. If you don't feel like joining today, we really appreciate you watching and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.
I think you're missing a key point here, is that it's nice to have nice things.
Two of the guys that I'm thinking of went ahead and got a custom stock, and by the time they got it, it was pretty much firewood, because they'd actually changed, they'd already developed as a shooter, and what they were doing when they were going for the fitting is not what they're doing now, and one of them never even shot it. It was so far off from being workable, you're like, that is a waste of time and money. Sometimes people just like to do silly things, but
most of the time, from my experience, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes doing stupid is fun.